Welcome, and thank you for tuning in again. This is the account with the daily news update for day 296 of the war in Ukraine. Today's news reports were dominated by Russia's seventh major missile attack on Ukraine, targeting critical infrastructure across the country. While the Air Force reportedly shot down most of the missiles, sadly, enough managed to hit their targets, which caused widespread blackouts, even affecting Moldova. We will take a look at the situation first before we move on to the other news out of Ukraine, the occupied territories, and the international developments. But first, we will begin with the flashpoints along the front. Bahkmut. The front seems to be stabilizing while battles continue. According to reports, Russian units that managed to penetrate Ukrainian lines are still holding out in the eastern suburbs, but Ukraine is slowly pushing them out. Unconfirmed reports claim Russia has once again abandoned the garbage dump in the southeast, marked here. In recent days, we have seen major artillery bombardment on Russian positions around Bahkmut and several strikes deep into Russian-held territory along the ground lines of communication leading to Bahkmut. West of Oryx, Ukrainian artillery used airburst shells to devastate Russian trench fortifications. A gruesome drone video shared on social media shows 35 to 40 Russian soldiers, of which at least 17 were killed. In the evening, Russia once again shelled Ukrainian positions around Bahkmut with incendiary ammunition. Yakovlivka. The settlement has just fallen to Russia's Wagner mercenaries. A picture shared on social media shows Russian units in the center of Yakovlivka. Earlier today, footage was released showing Russian units operating in the settlement. And now for the updates on the Russian missile attack on Ukraine. Using Tu-95MS and Tu-22M3 strategic bombers, Su-35 fighter jets, and the Admiral Makarov, Russia launched its seventh missile attack on Ukraine, mainly targeting Kyiv. Overall, it is reported Russia launched 76 missiles on Ukraine. Valery Zaluzhny, the commander-in-chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, reported 60 were shot down. Ukrenergo has declared a state of emergency after over 50% of electricity had been lost due to the attack. The Ukrainian government announced the introduction of emergency blackouts across Ukraine. Blackouts especially affected the railway in the Kharkiv, Kirovohrad, Donetsk, and Dnipropetrovsk oblasts. Backup diesel locomotives will help drive passenger trains. The Russian attack also led to blackouts in Moldova. A journalist of ICTV Facts had the unique opportunity to film the explosions by Russian missiles from a plane. The Kyiv City Military Administration reported 37 out of 40 missiles were shot down. However, explosions were reported in the Desnyansky, Dniprovsky, and Holosivsky districts of the city. The water supply has been suspended in some areas, and the metro has been stopped for the day, while underground stations serve as shelters. In the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, 10 missiles were shot down by anti-aircraft. However, explosions were reported in Kryvyi Rih, where a residential building was hit. At least one missile hit the entrance to the residential building, killing 2 and wounding 5. Further casualties might still be under the rubble. Latest reports say 3 civilians were killed and 13 injured, and more might still be under the rubble. Kharkiv, the second largest city in Ukraine, was left completely without power after critical infrastructure was hit 3 times. Ihor Terehov, the mayor of Kharkiv, reported about enormous infrastructure damage, especially on the electrical grid. Due to power outages in the regional capital Poltava, residents were asked to switch off electrical appliances. In the Zaporizhzhia Oblast, authorities reported 15 missile strikes. We are waiting on further information. In the evening, it was reported that 1/3 of Kyiv residents had their heat and water supply restored, with the rest following tomorrow. In the city of Kharkiv, the power supply was partially restored, while in Sumy Oblast, the power supply was fully restored. Moving on to the latest developments inside Ukraine. Yesterday's shelling of Kherson city center by Russian forces left 4 civilians dead and 9 wounded. A Red Cross paramedic was killed when a building used by local authorities and volunteers to distribute aid to civilians was hit. The Kyiv Independent released a video report about the Kherson Local Law Museum, which housed over 180,000 exhibits but now stands empty. Overall, 40 museums have been reportedly looted all over Ukraine. Let's move on to the latest news out of the occupied territories. The Russian occupation authorities have implemented an all-night curfew in Melitopol and Berdyansk. No official explanation are given, however, people are told that this is related to measures for fighting saboteurs and terrorists. Additionally, the movement of military equipment through Mariupol has intensified and the area is being fortified. And finally, the international developments. This is a bit older but constantly updated article by the Oryx Project. It is tracking Russian false claims regarding the war in Ukraine, specifically the tally of supposedly destroyed equipment. There are few countries indeed which have weaponized disinformation to the extent Russia has done over the past years. Their attempts to sway public opinion through false narratives are staggering. However, Russia is putting in surprisingly little effort when fabricating these claims. Here are some made by Russian propaganda. 20 HIMARS claim to have been destroyed or captured by Russia's Ministry of Defense as of October 1, 2022. Only 16 HIMARS have been delivered to Ukraine as of the making of these claims. There is no visual evidence that supports the loss of any HIMARS. 1,000 Bayraktar TB2s were claimed to have been destroyed by Russian state TV as of June 30, 2022. Baikar Tech, the producer of the TB2, has never made more than 450 TB2s. Visual evidence at that time supported the destruction of 9 TB2s. A total of 14 are currently visually confirmed to have been destroyed. The General Staff of Ukraine reported in its morning update the use of mobile crematoria in occupied Tokmak. The report states, the Defense Forces of Ukraine destroyed up to 10 units of Russian military equipment of various types in the city of Tokmak, Zaporizhzhia Oblast on December 14th. About 180 enemy servicemen were wounded. It is noted that Russian mobile crematoria are in operation in the city. Bloomberg reports the Pentagon is using undefinitized contract action to replenish US stocks and help resupply the armed forces of Ukraine. This allows for rapid contracting and delivery before all terms and prices are made final. These steps are specifically taken for missiles for the Stinger and Javelin systems. Dmitry Medvedev, deputy chairman of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, stated on Telegram which targets Russia views as legitimate. First, any enemy forces, legitimate combatants and illegal combatants that have not officially withdrawn from its armed forces. Second, any military and auxiliary equipment belonging to the enemy. Third, any military infrastructure as well as civilian infrastructure that contributes to the achievement of military goals. These include bridges, transport stations, roads, energy facilities, factories, and workshops that are at least partially fulfilling military orders, and so on. Fourth, the military and political leadership of the enemy country. Fifth, the armed forces of other countries that have officially entered the war, which are allies of the enemy country, and facilities located on their territory that are mentioned in paragraphs 1 to 4. The Kyiv Independent, in its weekly Belarus update, states that Belarus conducted the inspection of the troops after the visit by Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu. Belarus also continues to engage in covert mobilization. Russia, on the other hand, has redeployed its MiG-31K aircrafts to Belarus. These are capable to fire the Kinjal missiles. Belarus, trying to distance itself further from the West, has decided to remove the euro from its currency basket weightings, giving extra weight to the Russian ruble, and is considering nationalizing of foreign-owned enterprises. The White House reported that the next security assistance package for Ukraine will contain additional air defense capabilities. A decision to send Patriot systems to Ukraine could be announced within the week, according to several reports. Now for the intelligence report by the UK Ministry of Defence. As shown by imagery in recent weeks, Russian forces have continued to expend considerable effort to construct extensive defensive positions along the front line. They have likely prioritized the northern sector around the town of Svatove. The Russian constructions follow traditional military plans for entrenchment, largely unchanged since the Second World War. Such constructions are likely to be vulnerable to modern precision indirect strikes. The construction of major defensive lines is further illustration of Russia's reversion to positional warfare that has been largely abandoned by most modern Western militaries in recent decades. And to wrap up the report, the evening update by the General Staff of Ukraine. In the morning, the enemy launched a massive missile attack on the civilian infrastructure of our country. According to updated data, the Russian invaders fired 70 cruise missiles and 4 guided air missiles. 60 cruise missiles were shot down by our air defense forces. As a result of the strikes, several energy infrastructure facilities and residential buildings were hit in the Sitomir, Kyiv, Kharkiv, Dnipropetrovsk, and Zaporizhzhia oblasts. In the Bahkmut and Avdiivka directions, the enemy continues assaulting our positions, trying to find weak spots in our defense lines for a breakthrough. The enemy continues to strengthen the defense line on the border of the Kherson region and the autonomous Republic of Crimea. It also strengthens the defense and protection of water supply facilities to the temporarily occupied territory of Crimea, in particular the North Crimean Canal. For this purpose, units mobilized from the Krasnodar territory were additionally sent. And with that, we are done with today's news update. In case one of the articles mentioned caught your interest, I included links to all of them in the description. Thank you for tuning in to today's news report and have a great day. You were listening to The Account. Slava Ukraini.